Transmitter device activated. Coordinates set for Earth 2.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Earth 2 podcast, your weekly exploration of the DC Comics multiverse and the legacy of their Golden Age characters through the Silver and Bronze Ages of comics. I'm Peter Watson.
And I'm David Steele. Welcome back. Thank you for joining us. Now, if you follow us on the socials, listeners, you might have an idea which episode we're covering this week, because the other week I posted a house ad which heralded the return of the Justice Society in All-Star Comics number 58, and also heralded the return of Blackhawk in issue 244 of Blackhawk. Yes, now, obviously, the Blackhawk team have appeared on the podcast before. Isn't that right, Peter?
Well, certainly is, yes, and some very exciting tales.
Yes, a long time ago, so looked this up. It was an episode we released in May 2021.
Oh, gasp.
I know,
well.
Where we covered issues 228 to 230, which is our 54th episode.
Oh, early doors.
So we've done over 200 episodes since. And that one established pretty much that there was a team of Blackhawks on the same Earth as the Justice League of America.
Yes, but not necessarily the only team of Blackhawks.
Yes, because listeners with long memories may recall that when we did Justice League of America issues 107 and 108, there was a moment in that story where Uncle Sam talked about the heroes who'd been killed previously on Earth X, and there was a panel which referenced Plastic Man and the Blackhawks team. So that at least suggested, as well as a Blackhawk team on the same Earth as the Justice League, there was also a Blackhawk team on the same Earth as the Freedom Fighters. I hope you're keeping track of all this, listeners.
Yes, and of course we also referred to the Blackhawks when we did the Human Bombs episode, because the Blackhawks encountered another human bomb.
Yes. Not the same human bomb from the Freedom Fighters, which suggested, was this even yet another Blackhawk team on another Earth, possibly? So this is quite a late addition to the schedule. We hadn't really planned on doing this one, but I kind of...
No, true.
Mainly because I'd seen the house ad, I suggested to Peter that we did this one, because it would be quite interesting, because it is yet another revival of a Golden Age superhero team during the Bronze Age of DC Comics.
Round about the same time as the JSA?
Yes. Yeah, there's a lot of this stuff going on, and Peter and I are both big fans of Blackhawk, and yeah, why not? I said, why not? Peter's not as thrilled about it as I am, but not to worry. So, the previous issue of Blackhawk to be published to this one was issue 243, which was published on the 15th of August 1968. So Blackhawk obviously was cancelled at that point, and they'd attempted to make them sort of superhero-type figures in the issues that we'd covered previously. And this obviously hadn't gone too well. They kind of dispensed with the superhero costumes like, was it Dr. Hands and the Listener and stuff like that?
Yes, the Listener. Chuck was the Listener. Hi, Chuck, if you're listening.
Yes. We should have got Chuck to voice Chuck.
We should have,
but we're recording this 13 days before it's released, so there isn't time to edit it.
Sorry, Chuck.
So yeah, the Blackhawks have, apart from that one appearance in one panel of JLA 107, the Blackhawks have been away for quite a while. They'd obviously, I think, they'd wound the book up around about the same time, generally in the same rough ballpark as they wound up Challengers of the Unknown and the Sea Devils and such like. And
all the non-powered teams.
Adventure-type heroes had kind of fallen from favour, I think.
Yeah, very true. Very true.
So they are trying again, bringing them back with issue 244. Published on the 21st of October 1975, a whole week before my dad's 35th birthday, and a couple of weeks after John Lennon's 35th birthday. Yes, very close date of publication to the third birthday of our very own Peter Watson.
Gasp. Well, there we are.
Nice to imagine the young Peter Watson sat at home, listeners, eating a packet of Spangles and reading a copy of Blackhawk 244, as well as only 3 channels on the television and all that sort of thing.
Furiously jotting down notes for a podcast they might do 50 years hence.
Gosh. Listeners, what were you doing in October 1975 if you were alive? Write in and let us know, and we'll read out your communique in the future. I'm serious. Ross, Chuck, please do. It'd be fun. Ross is bound to know what he was doing, because he's got that story about travelling across country. When
he'll be in the back of a car reading it. That's it.
Yeah, he was reading in the back of the car, probably travelling from one part of America to the other because his dad was... We have to give Ross a special shout out because he's out of commission at the moment. He had a nasty fall and he's done his foot-ins.
Yes.
Ross, we send you love and healing vibes, and we hope you're feeling better, and we hope this episode and our outrageous accents cheers you up a little bit.
Yes, and once again, thanks for doing Bob Haney for us in that Brave and Bold episode, because you were outstanding, sir.
Yes. Of course, again, we'll tell you, Ross does some great podcasting under Stop Let's Team Up. He's releasing regular episodes of Opal City Confidential, and Kirby, his regular co-host, is doing his walkthrough of Captain Carrot and the Amazing Zoo Crew, which absolutely tickled me the other night because he was also talking about the short cartoon Duck Dodgers in the 24.5th century. So I was walking home from a particularly gruelling shift at Glasgow Royal Concert Hall, and Kirby, my God, mate, you had me laughing out loud in the streets of Glasgow at 1 o'clock in the morning, and not many people can do that, so there you are. Anyway, Blackhawk 244 is why we're here. Peter is going to tell us about the cover.
There's a cigar band at the top. We have the Blackhawk logo, Blackhawk in small letters, the Line of DC Superstars logo. Back from the dead, the greatest fighting team in the world. 25 cents, number 244, February. And this week's number is 30436, which I think actually might be the registry number of the USS Bozeman in Star Trek. I could be wrong. Listeners, don't write in and tell us because I know I'm definitely wrong. The new Blackhawk is at the top, approved by the Comics Code Authority. Now, we have the assembled Blackhawk team running towards us. There's planes in the background. There's a full sun in the background. Take a drink. You have Blackhawk at the front leading the charge wearing a new outfit. In fact, all the Blackhawks are wearing new outfits. It seems to be kind of a two-piece. Blue's the main colour. There's red piping on it. It's almost like a karate top they're wearing with like the open chest, isn't it?
Yeah, they're all sort of slashed almost to the waist. It strikes me as being a very 70s Legion Dave Cockrum style version of the Blackhawk uniform.
Very much so. Very mid-70s. All they're missing is medallions, basically. So, as well as that, they also have, well, Blackhawk has the Blackhawk logo on his left breast. Yes, he also has a belt buckle with a Blackhawk logo. He's also got a gun in his hand. He's firing away. He's looking very angry as he's leading the charge. Behind him are the assembled Blackhawks. So, of course, you'll know, listeners, as Chuck, Stanislaus, Olaf, Hendrickson, Chop Chop, and Andre, the Frenchman.
Andre's also firing his gun.
Yes.
You can tell it's Andre because of the moustache.
Of course.
And I think that's Olaf immediately behind Blackhawk. And I'm guessing by a process of elimination, from left to right, as looking at it, it must be Chuck, Chop Chop,
yes,
Hendrickson, and Stanislaus at the back.
Stanislaus on the right, yes.
If you're a regular listener, you might be disappointed to learn that we have not gone back to re-listen to episode 54 to find out what voices we did. So we apologise for any inconsistencies. We might have swapped a couple around just for balance as well, but, we'll see how it goes. Yes, it's interesting that it's a Joe Kubert cover, I think. Yes,
stunning Joe Kubert. I do like the fact that Blackhawk's got those lines around his face, it's kind of like distressed action lines.
Yes.
Very, very cool.
As if he's shouting or calling or something, yeah.
Narrowed eyes. And I should also mention the fact that they're actually under fire. You can see bullets hitting the ground in front of them, but the Blackhawks don't care. They're charging into battle, because that's what they do. They are the new Blackhawks.
The new Blackhawks.
Yes.
I have a nice 10p Thorpe and Porter stamp just above Blackhawk's left arm, so you'll see that on Instagram, listeners.
Good.
I have the vaguest feeling that I had a copy of this in primary school.
Really?
I've got a vague memory of us going into, I think it must have been the sort of main hall of Foxbar Primary School in Foxbar and Paisley. There was some sort of not quite like a book stall sort of thing, or that it's so vague as to be almost impossible to recall, but I remember having a few pennies to spend and being struck by the difference in cover design along the top with the cigar band, as we've come to call it, with that logo, being different from the DC Bullet corner logo that I was used to from stuff like Super Friends and Justice League, whatever.
Sure, yeah.
That's literally all I remember. I think it's most likely this cover just because I have this abiding sort of memory, having some pennies to spend and just, I'll just get this, and probably not really thinking very much of it at the time. So I probably did about 5 or 6 tops or something.
Sure.
Listeners, do you have any vague memories of owning issue 244 of Blackhawk? Peter will tell you where to send them when we get to the end of the episode. So we've rambled on quite long enough. Let's jump into the story. Our opening splash panel is very, very similar to the cover in that we can see all of the assembled members of the team in their new uniforms running towards the camera, firing their guns as they go. A caption along the top reads,
"The return of the greatest fighting team of all! Blackhawk in Death's right hand!"
Down the left, oh good, I like when we do this, there's a little roll call of all the characters involved, which starts off with
Blackhawk,
Hendrickson,
Stanislaus,
Olaf,
Chuck,
Andre,
Chopper,
Duchess, Ramona Fatale. And we see everyone lined up, but Duchess Ramona Fatale, or Fatale, however you want to pronounce it, she's got blonde hair, very square-jawed, and she looks to be shaded very peculiarly. It looks like maybe her left eye's in shadow. We'll come back to that. So, the heroes are running towards us and Blackhawk is yelling,
"Move it, men! We're in too close now. They don't dare use any really heavy stuff or they'll blow themselves apart."
And guess what? There's even more captioning.
The spurts of sand shoot skyward as bullets burrow deep into the hot Sahara waste. Bombs bursting about them, 7 fighting men rush recklessly into battle, unaware that this turbulent clash is but a prelude to a far greater challenge. Before the sun sets this day, the term hand-to-hand combat will take on a new and diabolically deadly meaning, as Blackhawk faces the forces of the man called Vibrax.
Vibrax sounds like something you take when you've not been going to the loo properly for a couple of days, if you ask me.
I wouldn't know.
There's then another little caption box which gives us the credits for this issue.
Steve Skeets, writer. George Evans, artist. Jerry Conway, editor. Yep, we're in Conway's Corner, folks.
Yes. Now, listeners, I mentioned the socials earlier. If you saw on our posts for All Star Comics 58, you'll see that I shared on Instagram and on Facebook a couple of cropped pages from an issue of Amazing World of DC Comics, which had a little sketch design of Power Girl's costume and general look. And that mentioned the return of Blackhawk there as well. So go and scroll back a couple of weeks if you want to have a look at that. Panel 1 and page 2, the story continues. We pull back to see that our heroes are running towards what looks like a pyramid. Are the pyramids actually in the Sahara Desert?
You'll find out as we read on.
I can't remember. That's the sort of thing I should know. We can see our heroes are firing. They're being fired upon. Beautifully rendered sky. Very tasteful shades of orange and yellow. Now, there are various group scenes where the dialogue isn't too clear, but we think it's Chopper who starts things off saying,
"We're home free, Andre. No way his fancy pants guards are going to stop us now."
"Oh, sacre, I still cannot believe a man of today would build such a structure simply to feed his ego." Oh, so it's not the actual pyramid. Well, that's all right then. But then Blackhawk yells to him,
"Andre, watch it! To your right!"
And we see there's a figure down on the ground firing upon the comedy Frenchman, who turns to his right and fires with a
Kapow!
saying, "Merci, mon capitaine." Catch up with the heroes again in the next panel as they rush towards the entrance of the pyramid with Andre saying, "Surely that devil's bullet had my name written on it."
All of you, keep your mind on the work. For the moment, just forget about the collector's bloated ego. Now move! We're going in low and fast.
And with pistols ready, the heroes duck into the entrance to the pyramid.
Dropping under the enemy's final barrage, Blackhawk takes aim, and...
We see Blackhawk has dropped to the ground and he's bearing his pistol towards 2 men dressed in sort of desert comfortable robes, standing on a flight of stairs, and in front of them is a man in a purple suit, wearing what looks like a white shirt or a white jumper, a sort of very typical Western-looking fellow. Blackhawk is saying,
"Hold it, Collector! Give it up now! I've got you in my sights, and this baby's got a hair trigger."
"Oh, very well, Blackhawk. You've won this round."
"We've won more than that, friend. We're here to retrieve a few things which don't quite belong to you."
Blackhawk steps forward as the Collector drops his pistol.
Presently, deeper within the Collector's fortress...
Yeah, see the Collector, red-haired fellow, purple suit, standing up, in front of the heroes, with Andre and Blackhawk pointing their weapons at him. In the background we can see Chopper with his ear to a large metal safe. Chopper is saying,
"The charge is set, Blackhawk." "Thanks, Chopper. Next time, Collector, I suggest you give us that combination."
"Pigs! A few more days and I would have sold the plans." "We, greedy one," says Andre. "You could have sold them before we found out you had them, if you had not set such a high price." In the first panel of page 3, there is a massive explosion as the safe door blows open. Our heroes kneel down to examine it, as Olaf says,
"Yiminy, it ban hard to believe all this for just a few scraps of paper."
Yes, we see Blackhawk lifting out these aforementioned pieces of paper, and he says,
"Yes, Olaf, but very important papers, potentially deadly in the wrong hands."
And then a very smiling, happy Stanislaus says,
"Don't forget, Olaf, these papers also represent a profit."
In the background we see Blackhawk standing in front of what looks like some very fancy works of art. I wonder if the Collector collected them as well. And Blackhawk says in response to his colleague,
"And since time is money, let's not spend it and talk. Come on, our work here is done." Shortly, the sands of the Sahara swirl high, shaken by 7 jets streaking away.
Yes, this is a great shot. I have to say, I really like George Evans' artwork. I'm not really familiar with him, but it really suits this story. So as the planes take off, we hear Blackhawk reporting in over a sort of video phone effort.
Well, well, Robinson, you certainly do look spiffy today. I just called to tell you the mission's complete. The plans were held by a free agent calling himself the Collector, a real egomaniac who's built his own private pyramid in the middle of the Sahara. We've dealt with him before.
But Blackhawk's interrupted by the figure on the screen, who we can see is wearing a loud checked suit jacket, has a side parting black tie, and he interrupts Blackhawk saying, "Wait a minute, what about the prototype? The president hasn't authorized me to pay for just the..."
No, you wait a minute, Robinson. When you contacted us, you said you'd pay for whatever we could retrieve, and you'd better believe I'm going to hold you to it. The Collector said he has no idea where the prototype is, and I'm inclined to believe him. You said yourself, the plans in the prototype were stolen from different installations. If I get a lead in the prototype, we'll follow it up. In the meantime, you'd better hand over the agreed amount, or we may have trouble.
And as Robinson breaks the call, we hear him saying, "That's it, Blackhawks. Your lives are your own once again." And Blackhawk thinks to himself,
This isn't the first time Robinson has tried to weasel out of a deal. Some sorry day that fool is going to go too far. And when he does, well, we'll see.
Some beautiful art for the first panel of page 4. The planes all arcing through the sky, as captions read.
At once the jets disperse. 4 heading toward the US, 2 toward Europe, and a final group of 1 bound for the Pacific. Aboard this last jet, Hendrickson, the eldest Blackhawk, is lost in thought. Unlike the others, he thinks not of what lies ahead, but rather of the battle past. For Hendrickson is the one Blackhawk without another identity.
We get a nice shot of Hendrickson. He's the older member of the team, as the caption says. Thick white moustache. And he's deep in thought. Phew. We retrieved the plans for an anti-missile remote feedback distender stabilizer console, or something like that. Chuck is the scientist of the group, so he must have understood what this was all about. But this is one mission that was way over my head. Way Over My Head, excellent song by the Flamin' Groovies. Amazing. The captioning continues.
Soon his destination lies before him, disrupting the tranquil horizon, Black Hawk Island. To the others it is a home away from home. But for Hendrickson, it is home. Radar probes have already located the jet and approved its approach. Now, as the craft makes its smooth and rapid landing, a hidden hangar rises from beneath the island sands.
Yep. A lot of say what you see captioning as the plane descends in the final panel of page 4. We see, obviously, sort of vertical takeoff, landing, thrusters kicking into effect, and Hendrickson lowers his plane down into, I don't know, the hangar, the garage, whatever you want to call it. In the first panel of page 5, we see him removing his headgear as he thinks, "I wonder how long it'll be this time, before I start talking to myself." Then he says out loud, "Hendrickson, if you don't like living here alone, why did you choose to do so? After all, it was your decision, no one else's." We see him placing his hand onto a screen and pulling himself up, stopping in front of a little array of horizontal bands of golden energy as he says, "Oh, better watch it, old man. Get too preoccupied and someday you're going to walk right into Chuck's favourite defence device. Okay, electronic eye," as he places his hand on the screen, "check out my fingerprints. Then make those laser beams go away."
Once inside, Hendrickson hears 1,000 automatic defensive weapons clicking into ready position, feels 1,000 electronic eyes glaring at him and approving his passage, until, at last, he reaches the inner office, where...
Yeah, as Hendrickson walks along the shiny floored corridor, we see obviously sort of camera lenses and stuff hanging from the ceiling, turning and watching him go, and he opens the door to the office and thinking, "I can't believe all the trouble Chuck went to just to... What?" And his eyes open wide as he exclaims, "You? Duchess Ramona Fatal! How did you get past all our..." And he's cut off by this unexpected visitor, who we see as a devastatingly beautiful red-haired young woman. We see in the next page that she's actually only wearing a sort of leopard skin or animal print bikini, but she's wearing one of the Blackhawks' new jackets over it to basically cover her modesty. And we also see that the sort of shading that I alluded to in the opening splash image isn't shading at all. Over her left eye, she wears an eye patch. Duchess Ramona Fatal is holding a pistol pointed at Hendrickson as she says, "Oh, come now, Hendrickson, that much was child's play." let's talk about something more interesting, shall we? I've come here to hire you and the others. How would you care to hear my proposition, old friend? And Henriksen says, Certainly, but first... And he reaches forward, and there's a weird zap sound effect as he knocks the pistol out of Duchess Ramona Fatal's hand, and she exclaims, What?
Disarmed, the hard-edged beauty seems to lose her strength as she sinks into the closest chair.
She puts her hand up to her head and says, Well, well, I see that age hasn't robbed you of your verve or agility, old man. That was very deft. And Henriksen looks troubled and thinks, Yo, what's happened to her? I've seen 100 expressions on this woman, ranging from anger to elation, but never have I seen her look lost, sad, and almost afraid.
This is the Duchess Ramona Fatal, known as Patch, a mercenary whom the Blackhawks have fought beside at times, but more often fought against. Perhaps it is the safety and the security of the Blackhawk fortress which allows her to consider, for the first time, the events of the past few days, and to feel the emotions which have been building up inside her. Emotions she has tried to deny without success for over 24 hours. It began not as a crisis, but as a day of relaxation, filled with the joy of triumph on her own island fortress.
Yes, and we see the Duchess stretched out on the beach, wearing the aforementioned animal print bikini. There's a chap lying on the sand beside her, big muscular chap, dark-haired, a moustache. And running towards them, we see a younger chap in a white shirt, black shorts, who yells, Duchess, the sonar system has gone haywire. What should we... But he's interrupted by the other guy who says,
Relax, Fritz. It's probably just an electronic malfunction. Don't let it...
No, you don't understand. It's more than a malfunction. Look, there, and he's cut off. He goes, as we hear a crack, and he's struck by a bullet, which seems to go right through his hand into his body, and we see that he's not that young after all.
It happened so quickly, there was hardly time to react.
And we see that the shots are coming from pistols being fired by some green-garbed frogmen, how 70s can you get, who are emerging from the sea nearby. They continue to fire against the Duchess and her pal Raoul. The Duchess and Raoul get to their feet, the Duchess saying, Intruders! Somehow they've jammed the sonar! The automatic defences aren't working!
But what about the men? Why aren't they?
And some incorrect captioning, which highlights some misappropriated or misplaced speech bubbles, says,
Before she could complete her question, she received her answer. The rest of her men raced onto the beach, firing round upon round, providing cover as she and Raoul, her first lieutenant and favourite, rushed back toward the fortress. Though the sonar-activated defences were silenced, other automatic defences were activated. As the enemy stepped out of the sea, huge mortars sprang from the ground, belching gigantic shells. All to no avail. Vastly outnumbered and overwhelmed by surprise, the Duchess and her cohorts fought a losing battle.
Yeah, we'll probably put this big panel at the top of page 7 on the socials so you can see it, listeners. General violence and explosions going on. We can see the Duchess and Raoul running across the beach as they're fired upon, and her own men coming up firing from behind. There's a massive big sort of cannon in the foreground of the image, and also what looks like a weird sort of radar dish at the front. Everyone firing, lots of bullets going on. But panel 2, we see the Duchess and Raoul coming to a halt as one of the frogmen stands in front of them. Raoul, he tries to protect the Duchess and he says,
It's no use. You've got to save yourself, Duchess.
But...
Now, while there's still time. Move it, woman. Blast it. Move. She wasn't used to taking orders, so why then did she obey his command? Was it because of him? Because of the way he spoke? Or simply the fear of death?
And in the final panel of page 7, we see poor Raoul trying to protect his mistress as one of the frogmen steps forward, and we can see there's a circular gadget attached to the back of his hand. Metallic looking sort of thing. He steps forward, places a hand on Raoul's chest and says, Out of my way, you fool! No one stands in the path of Anton Vibrax, Death's right hand, whose hand suddenly seems to glow with electrical energy, and poor Raoul seems to glow pink and vibrate. It's really weird. Maybe there'll be room in the socials. Poor Raoul exclaims, What? And then we arrive at the top of page 8, and there's a slight shift in angle because Raoul, it seems, has turned round, and Anton Vibrax standing behind him with his hand placed against Raoul's chest, There's a weird sound effect as poor Raoul seems to vibrate under the onslaught, and Raoul is thinking,
Can't move. Muscles going into spasms. His hand vibrating. My heart. It's...
and he screams. There's a very interesting shot of Duchess Ramona Fatal, who's leapt into the water to escape and seems to be hand-inflating a small rubber dinghy, which obviously is what she uses to escape and get to Blackhawk Island. Captioning resumes.
Raoul's scream, a shriek of such hideous pain and terror, it rings in her ears, even now.
There's been a little bit of a progression of time because we see Henriksen and the Duchess on a screen being viewed by Blackhawk member Stanislaus, who's not wearing his uniform. He's got glasses on. We know it's him because of his blonde crew cut. He's also wearing a very smart black suit, a very smart red tie, white shirt. And he's talking to Henriksen and Ramona over the screen. Stanislaus is saying,
Yes, Henriksen, I heard what you said. I still want to know, what is she doing there?
She wants to hire us. That's all I could get out of her, Stan. Her island has been taken over, and apparently all her men are dead.
Stanislaus nods, frowning. Without another word, he signs off and moves.
Yes, a little tick sound effect as he switches off the screen, and he thinks to himself,
Dead. This sort of thing has happened before, but with Fatal's men it's almost unbelievable. They were fine compatriots, and even better opponents. Blackhawk will want to act on this immediately.
Stanislaus is obviously at his place of work because we see him crossing to a very attractive young woman sat behind the desk, clearly his secretary, and he says to her,
Miss Russell, cancel my appointments for the rest of the day.
Yes, sir. And as she says this, two other men stand up behind her. There's an older chap. He looks like an incredibly overweight Julian Glover. Standing up, he's wearing a green suit and a loud tie. He gets to his feet saying,
Her? What did you say?
And there's another fellow who has glasses and a moustache and a loud orange and black striped suit who points at Stan and says, Now, hold on, fella. We also see in the next panel he's got a cracking sort of bootlace tie as he moves into Stan's personal space saying, I've been waiting 3 days to see you. First I'm told I can't see Mr. Cunningham himself, and now this.
Sorry, it can't be helped. But don't be too upset about Mr. Cunningham. Nobody sees him. Ever.
And literally jumping up and down with rage, this chap says, Well, of all there are other aircraft manufacturers, you know. But Stanislaus doesn't seem too bothered. He's laughing to himself as he walks off.
Grinning, the financial wizard of Cunningham Aircraft doesn't reply. With a long, lanky stride, he rushes from the office area and down the factory itself.
Yes, we see him progressing as he thinks.
I wonder what that chubby jobber would say if he knew that this corporation is only a hobby, at least as far as Mr. Cunningham is concerned.
Yes, Mr. Cunningham in inverted commas there. Interesting.
Then, out of the complex, heading for the company's major testing area.
We see as Stan runs along, there's a sign that reads, Warning Test Area. Stan is still thinking to himself.
Although, for a hobby, he's certainly done all right for himself. Here he finds the elusive Mr. Cunningham and the firm's chief scientist intently studying the first flight of their latest projects, a compressed solid-fuel jet.
Yes, because we see at the foreground of the panel, Blackhawk in overalls wearing a headset. Standing behind him is Chuck, the younger red-haired Blackhawk. All sorts of interesting buildings in the background, but flying overhead, it looks like a small space capsule or a little bit like an accessory for a 1970s or 1980s action figure, curling around in the sky, leaving great plumes of smoke. Stanislaus enters and Blackhawk, for he is Mr. Cunningham, turns and says,
Not now, Stan. We're... Sorry, Blackhawk, but I doubt you'll want to wait on this.
We're continuing the 5th page following. We pass some very interesting advertisements, including another full-page advert for some DC tabloids, and another one advertising tabloid editions of Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer and Christmas with the Superheroes, which I'll just mention has the Sandman and Sandy and Captain Marvel Jr. waving to us, amongst other heroes, including Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman and Santa Claus himself. We pass a full-page advertisement for some Matchbox toys, a couple of which look very, very familiar to me, as we arrive at the top of page 10, where another caption reads,
Beneath the sounds of the thundering jet, Stanislaus quickly explains the situation.
Yes, this is a great panel. Very economical. We can see the jet flying down towards our heroes as Stan stands with his arms wide open talking to Chuck and Blackhawk.
Then...
Blackhawk reaching for a microphone, and he's in the process of saying,
I'll tell Chopper. Chuck, you...
No! It took me months to set up this test. You can't!
We haven't got time for arguments, friend. Clear?
And at this point, Chuck is pointing up to the aircraft accessory, which is flying around, and we then cut to the cockpit, which we see contains Chopper. He hears Blackhawk coming over the radio and saying,
Chopper, cut the test short. We're needed elsewhere. Right-o, Mr. Cunningham, sir.
And then Chopper thinks to himself,
Uh-oh, this doesn't sound cool at all. This is the first time in months I've heard Blackhawk angry. More than angry. Confused.
Cut back to the ground where Blackhawk is saying,
Now, as I was saying, Chuck...
Yes, I know. Contact Andre and Olaf, then radio Henriksen and tell him we're on our way. I have a suspicion, though, my friend, that if this were anyone but the Duchess, you would have waited till the test was finished. And Blackhawk, looking vaguely dismissive, actually quite dismissive, waves a hand and says,
Believe what you want, Chuck. Come on, Stan, we'll get the plane ready.
And Stanislaus runs forward saying,
Let's at least stop long enough to change our outfits.
And he thinks,
This get-up may be helpful in the business arena, but for the Duchess, no way.
And as we arrive at the top of page 11, the theme tune to Allo Allo starts playing, and a caption reads,
Presently, in a plush Paris supper club.
Yes, we see Andre looking quite restrained, actually, wearing a blue suit and what looks like a black polo neck. He's sat at a table, which is a green and black checked tablecloth. We can see other couples in the background, and he's obviously enjoying the company of a very attractive young woman wearing a sort of off-the-shoulder yellow and black striped boob tube and a red checked miniskirt. She has what looks like flowers in her hair. Devastating by any standards. But we also see there is a little beep, 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 beep sound effect coming from the area of Andre's pockets. Andre puts a hand to his head and says, Oh, mon Dieu, no, not now. And Andre's devastatingly beautiful companion leans forward and says,
What is it, Andre, mon chéri?
An emergency. I'm needed at the office. Immediately. Andre gets to his feet and leaves, and his poor distraught friend gets to her feet and says,
Office? But you said you didn't have an office. Sacre, you cannot just leave. What about the check?
And as Andre heads for the exit, he replies, What check, little dove? We haven't even ordered yet.
Meanwhile, at a certain European ski resort...
You see a large burly fellow coming over a little rise on a pair of skis. Doesn't have his goggles over his eyes, the dafty. He's a lovely, lovely patterned jumper. And as he is flying through the air, he also hears a little beep, 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 beep sound effect. And Olaf says out loud,
By Jupiter, I've been hardly back, and already comes the call to return. It been good thing I told Mrs. Bradley I couldn't give her private lessons today. She was upset enough when I tell her that. But she would have been really upset if I had said yeah, then cancelled at the last moment.
And he skis on further into the landscape.
Reaching the foot of the mountain, the big ski instructor comes to a cave, quickly enters, and within seconds he is once more a Blackhawk, zooming away.
Yes, zooming away with an amazing view sound effect. Amazing indeed. We then pass, oh good, it's the advertisement for Big Jim's Pack, Professional Agents and Crime Killers, featuring my close relative, Dr. Steele, and our old pal, Big Jim, as we arrive at the top of page 12.
Soon as the sun dips low over the craggy hills of Blackhawk Island...
Craggy hills of Blackhawk Island, we've all been there. Bit of a council of war going on, as Blackhawk squares up to the Duchess Ramon Fatal as he says,
And that's the way it's going to be, Duchess. You'll have to pay what anyone else would pay, $1 million. That's our fee. Take it or leave it.
Of course I'll pay. I wouldn't accept a freebie from you, even if you offered it. And while this exchange is going on, Big Olaf is coming through the door, and he's greeted by Andre, who says, well, if it isn't Monsieur Yumpin Jellybeans himself. As usual, the last to drag himself in. What was it this time, mon ami? Were you too busy giving some rich old jet-setter private ski lessons?
Watch your mouth, Froggy. I've been in no mood to... Enough! This is hardly the time to fight amongst ourselves. We've got plans to make, and I want your full undivided attention. But why listen to plans when, by simply skipping ahead, we can watch as they're enacted? The time, 30 minutes after our previous scene. The place, Duchess Island.
Cracking shot of some Blackhawk planes flying through a beautiful pink and blue and yellow sky.
The cast? Yep, you guessed it. The Blackhawks.
Yes, there's some banter going on between the lads as they fly down towards the island. Olaf kicks things off.
Andre, I've been thinking, after this mission, you and I should have a little talk.
Oh, sacre bleu, Olaf. You mustn't take everything I say so seriously. We are friends, we? Olaf? Olaf? And then, in a startling shift of perspective, we're down on the ground, and we're in the company of a large burly man with short, swept-back dark hair, wide, bushy, scary eyebrows, a horrible big potato of a nose, wide jaw with a big... Is that a spot or a wart on his chin? Massive sharp teeth. It kind of looks like a scary caricature of Alfred Molina.
I was thinking more Brian Cox.
Yeah, I can see it, and that's reminding me that I gave him a Scottish accent, so thank you.
Yes.
And we can see that he has the gadget arranged around his right hand that he used to attack poor Raoul earlier in the story. He's in the company of a few other men who all seem to be just wearing dark polo necks at this point from what we can see. And they're either looking at a screen or looking out a window because we can see the Blackhawk jets arriving, and this chap, who we met earlier, is saying, "Blast! Must be that blasted Fatale woman. Didn't figure she'd be back so soon, and with friends. Not that it'll do her any good. That Anton Vibrax swears." Oh my goodness, and he's obviously clenching his fist for emphasis, as in the first panel of page 13 he directs his army of goons, saying, "What are you waiting for, fools? Man the anti-aircraft guns. Blast them out of the air. We'll use the Duchess's own weapon to seal her doom."
However, within a hidden cove on the opposite side of the island...
Yes, we see a little rubber dinghy being paddled and approaching a beach. A couple of figures inside it, one of whom stands up and says, "That's far enough, Blackhawk. We dare not move in any closer until after the island's automatic defences have been disposed of. Then..."
Don't worry, Patch. I know what to do. I planned this little manoeuvre, remember?
We then cut away from the beach to an overhead shot of the Duchess's installation, and explosions and shots going off as one of the Blackhawk jets arcs overhead.
Ignoring the flak exploding around him, the test pilot of the troop swoops in low over the fortress, drops a small charge on a certain section of the small building off to the side of the main complex, and swings away like the proverbial bat out of hell.
I think that album had been released by then. That's quite interesting. We cut back inside to Anton Vibrax, who's saying, "That one missed us by a mile. But watch yourselves, you idiots. Let another jet through and there'll be some broken heads around here." We can see one of his men firing a sighted weapon in the background as Anton continues, "Now get ready. One of the other Blackhawks is sure to try the same stupid stunt any second."
However, as you've probably guessed, Chopper didn't exactly miss what he was aiming for.
Also, it was Chopper that was flying that plane. That's good to know, listeners. We're back with the Duchess, Ramon Fatale, a.k.a. Patch, and Blackhawk in their dinghy as the Duchess is saying, "Move! The defence system generator has been knocked out. We've got exactly 63 seconds before the auxiliary power clicks on."
I'm right behind you, my dear.
In the first panel, then, of page 14, we see Blackhawk and the Duchess still just wearing her bikini with the jacket over it, which isn't very good, is it? Ducking through an open doorway, Blackhawk yells,
Made it!
"Not yet, we haven't. We've still got to get through that doorway with only a few seconds left." And we can see the first beginnings of the electrical I-beam force field type thing reasserting itself. And in panel 2, it fully does, reforming as Blackhawk says,
Whew, close. Maybe too close.
and there's an interesting little sound effect, and it looks like his hair's gone a bit frizzy at the front. That's quite amusing. In the front of the panel, we get a close-up of the Duchess, who suddenly yells, "Blackhawk, look out!" And she brings up a pistol, and there's a
Blam!
sound effect. As a new arrival, one of Vibrax's goons fires upon Blackhawk and the Duchess, but the Duchess is too quick. She responds and fires as well. There is a sound effect. The goon exclaims, "Ugh!" And there is a
Zing!
sound effect as his bullet flies past Blackhawk's arm. Oh my goodness, how exciting. Leaving the man's body, the Duchess and Blackhawk run on down the corridor, with the Duchess saying, "Come on, the main weaponry room is up ahead."
The two mercenary leaders round the next corner, firing, taking many of their adversaries by surprise, but meeting fierce opposition nonetheless.
Yes, there is lots of
Bracka, 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 pow, pow, bracka, 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 pow.
sound effects going on, and we see members of the enemy forces sort of firing on our heroes. Mercifully, they missed them, but we can see as well that some of the bad guys drop to the ground. Hopefully there's room for this panel on the socials because it's very dynamic. High body count indeed for this story. My goodness, we arrive at the top of page 15.
It isn't long, though, before the writing's on the wall.
Yes, we can see Vibrax hiding behind some equipment, and we can see lots of dead bodies of his colleagues lying around. His right hand is vibrating to itself as he thinks, we are beaten, here at least. Any second now this section will be theirs. But at least I've got enough loyal subjects to keep Blackhawk busy while I make my escape. We see him getting to his feet and activating some device. We cut back to Blackhawk and the Duchess. Blackhawk saying,
Hey, Duchess, there goes Vibrax, but he won't get far. Not if I can help it. You finish up in here alone, then contact the others, have them move in.
Oh, thanks for the advice, Blackhawk, but I was already planning to do just that, says the Duchess as she continues to fire her gun.
The sounds of battle fade as Blackhawk enters a long, winding corridor.
Yes, beautifully rendered, shiny floor, and we see Blackhawk chasing Vibrax, who's a little bit ahead of him. Blackhawk is thinking,
Could finish him from here, I suppose, but I'd rather have this out face to face. Shouldn't be too hard to catch up. He can't run very fast with all that machinery he's wearing. Meanwhile, what faded for Blackhawk now dies completely, as...
Yes, the sounds of battle have stopped, because we can see, gosh, Vibrax's entire crew just lying dead on the floor, bullet holes everywhere. The Duchess sitting down having a nice wee rest and holding a radio microphone up to her mouth as she says, OK, boys, you can forget the anti-aircraft fire. We've taken the main weapon room. Objective 1 is complete. In other words, come in and start mopping up.
Almost as one, the jets land, and within seconds, a familiar battle cry rings across the rocky islands.
And there's a great shot of the lads running along, smiling and yelling,
HAWKAAAAA! While, deep within the fortress...
Blackhawk has caught up with Anton Vibrax. He has him in his sights, points his pistol at him and says,
Hold it right there, fella. This is what they call the end of the line.
Another reference to Travelling Wilburys song. What's going on? Vibrax looks back over his shoulder saying, It certainly is, Blackhawk. For you, I may have lost the battle, but you won't live to seize the spoils. He starts to vibrate his hand in the direction of Blackhawk's weapon, saying, That's right. Try to shoot me. Just try. Your gun's jammed, isn't it, pal? My aura of vibrations has the same effect on most mechanical devices when I get close enough, and I plan to get even closer so you can feel death's right hand.
Take a drink, you just said the name of the story.
I'm going to take a drink, hang on.
Me too, I also.
Listeners, why don't you join us? Take a quick drink. As Vibrax advances on Blackhawk, Blackhawk looks around at his surroundings and sees, very handily, some very fancy, ornate curtains. He exclaims,
Wait, those drapes!
And in a massive narrative leap between the panels, Blackhawk grabs one of the curtains, pulls it down, tries to wrap it around Vibrax, but Vibrax grins and says, Nice try, Blackhawk, but wrapping up my hand won't stop the vibrations. We can see that Blackhawk is trying to inhibit the operation of the device by covering it up. Vibrax continues, Get ready to... Too
late! Anton Vibrax realizes his error. The drapes are not the danger, but rather the metal rod attached to them. Thrown forward with such force, it smashes and twists the machinery on the kill-crazed villain's arm.
Oh my goodness, that's what Blackhawk was doing. We can see that Vibrax is starting to vibrate terribly himself. He yells, Whoa, my hand! No! No!
A short circuit creating vibration feedback courses not through the hand, but back up the arm, growing stronger, until...
And we see Vibrax vibrating and shaking like nothing else. Waves of energy coming off him as he yells, Yeah! And Blackhawk observes,
My lord, vibration's so strong. Can't keep my balance even at this distance. And when the shock waves fade...
Blackhawk kneels down next to the body of Anton Vibrax and thinks,
Must have shattered every bone in his body. A horrible death, but no worse than what he did to Raoul, or planned to do to me.
The Duchess arrives in the next panel, along with the rest of the members of the Blackhawk team. Again, she's still wearing just a bikini under the jacket. She's got a pair of high heels on. I'd be interested to know what our female listeners think of this. And the Duchess says, We've finished our part, and I can see you fared equally well. The fortress is mine again.
The fortress? Now, Duchess, there was a bit more involved than just your fortress, wasn't there?
Huh? What are you trying to say?
You know what I'm saying, lady. Vibrex didn't take over your island for no reason at all. He was after something. Something he hadn't yet had a chance to remove.
Blackhawk points to a doorway, which we can see as a sign on it reading 412, and then he directs a couple of members of his team, saying,
Andre, Chuck, hold on to the Duchess and stop her if she tries to cause trouble. Olaf, her eyes glanced toward that door when I mentioned the something Vibrex was after. Knock it down.
And as he moves forward, Olaf says,
Yeah, Blackhawk.
Now wait, exclaims the Duchess, but she's too late. There is a massive whack sound effect in the first panel of page 18 as Olaf takes the door down. Blackhawk steps into the open doorway. It's a very fancy-looking gadget lying on the floor in front of him, as he says to us all,
Well now, if it isn't the prototype for the anti-missile remote feedback distender stabilizer console, our friend Robinson is certainly going to be glad to see this.
No, you can't.
Oh yes, I can, Duchess, and I will. You hired me to get your island back, and that job is done, which means I'm free to return to work for one of my other clients. The government of a certain North American country hired me to retrieve this piece of machinery, and retrieve it is exactly what I plan to do.
The Duchess starts to punch him in the back, yelling, Pig! Swine!
Heave-ho, men, and let's get out of here.
And we see Olaf and Chuck and the others lifting up the anti-missile remote feedback distender stabilizer console, which they put on some kind of like platform type thing so they can carry it. They're moving off with it, as Blackhawk says,
Really now, Duchess, there's no need to get hysterical. Oh, and by the way, since I completed my mission for you as contracted, I expect to receive the full amount we agreed on.
And the Duchess, looking absolutely pained, and I bet she's stamping her feet in frustration, says, Yes, I'll pay. And you'll pay too. Pay for taking advantage of the fact I have no men to stop you. The next time we meet in battle, I won't hesitate to... And she breaks off. We see her silhouetted form in the next panel, looking out over a night sky as the Blackhawks leave.
The 7 Blackhawks depart. Their job is done. Once more the island belongs to Ramona Fatale. But the fiery Duchess thinks not about that, but about the man named Blackhawk. Slowly her anger toward him transforms into something else entirely, and slowly a lone tear, quite against her will, makes its way down her icy cheek, before she finally turns away.
And we close on a shot of the 7 Blackhawk jets flying through the early evening sky as a small caption reads,
The end.
And another caption reads,
Next issue on sale during the 4th week in December.
Now listeners, be assured we're not going to do a Jack Kirby Sandman. We're not going to do all the issues of the other Blackhawk series. We just thought we'd do this one. It was the first of the revival. The series would limp on until issue 250, published in October 1976. So this revival lasts a whole 7 issues. It's a lot of fun, actually. It's quite good. It's quite high octane, quite enjoyable. If you like that sort of thing. If you enjoyed this issue, you'll probably enjoy the rest of them. I enjoyed this issue. Did you, Peter?
It was all right.
Did you enjoy it more in the telling and the recording than in the reading, as sometimes happens?
I certainly did, yes. And whenever we do Blackhawk stories, I'm always reminded of an episode of Frasier, the ham radio episode, the one where Frasier's directing an old style radio play, and Niles has got the script blind, and every character's got a different accent, and it's like, and yes, and the Welshman says, and the dwarf says, and Niles has to come up with voices for all these characters, like on the spur of the moment. I always think the accents in Blackhawk are ridiculous, and some of the terminology they use also is ridiculous. What I will say is it's really interesting in this story, they have changed Chop Chop to Chopper.
Yes.
And also not given him any kind of stereotypical kind of dialogue.
No.
They've kept it for Olaf and characters like that. Olaf and Andre are still very much caricatures. Yeah. But they've taken away the whole racial stereotype for that character. That's fascinating.
Yeah, and let me quickly, because that was a couple of points you made there, let me agree that doing the accents is the biggest fun in doing a Blackhawk story, trying to make them all sound vaguely European, yet vaguely different at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Special thanks to our pal Kelly Blair for playing the part of the lady in the French cafe. I'm sure it's very true to life. And yeah, Chopper's someone I was thinking about because he does look a little bit older here.
Yes, he does.
Than when we last saw him. So,
less of the kid's sidekick.
Yeah. And this is where we can sort of speculate. Are these the same Blackhawks that we saw last time? It appears to be sort of contemporary.
Yes, very much so.
Which suggests it's maybe a continuation of the adventures of the guys that we covered in our 54th episode 4 and a bit years ago.
Yeah.
And we've maybe just kind of picked up with them. But they all seem a little bit... Just seem there's a little bit of a sort of harder edge to it, in a way. The guns and all that everywhere.
Well, yes, all the brutal killings of all the henchmen. It's almost like a Bond movie.
Well, yeah.
You expect to have someone, like, say at the end, it's like Diamonds Are Forever with that guy saying, self-destruct in 2 minutes and counting. I get expecting to hear something like that.
I think if this had been a film, or they made a film of it, or, if we'd had the budget, we would have got Jill St. John to do the voice of the Duchess. It's interesting because it put me in mind of films like North Sea Hijack or Juggernaut or
Austin Powers for me.
That sort of thing. You can imagine Roger Moore playing one of these characters, maybe.
Oh, without a doubt, yeah.
This is the sort of thing that Trevor Baxendale would say is his favourite film of all time, anytime someone mentioned it on Twitter. Hi Trevor, if you're listening. It properly feels like a mid-70s adventure, I know Who Dares Wins was a few years later, but it has that sort of feel to it of high octane, boys, modern day episode of The Professionals or something type, Pew, pew, pew. It's almost like little boys playing games outside, as we did in the 70s,
Yeah, very much so. I mean, another one of the things that's interesting about this is the character of the Duchess. And it's so frustrating because every time I was going to say her name, I was thinking of Ramona Fradon. Duchess Ramona Fatal, it's like, and Duchess Ramona Fradon says. Ramona Fradon, obviously the long-standing, recently deceased DC artist whose work was phenomenal.
Yes.
Worked for decades for DC, co-creator of Metamorpho, worked in Aquaman, Super Friends, so many amazing stories told by her.
We're planning to do a couple of issues of Super Friends, of course.
Yes, so we will get to some of our work in the fairly near future. Fairly near, by which I mean the next year.
Yeah, so. As the crow flies and all that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I really liked the Duchess. I'm going to have to remind myself and flick through the other issues because I can't really remember if I'm sure she comes back.
She does come back. However, although they said this is their old ally/foe, this is her first appearance.
Ah, interesting.
Yeah, so this is a completely new character. It reminds me of, again, I can never remember if it was Ocean Master. When he first appears and Aquaman goes, my old enemy, Ocean Master. It's either Ocean Master or Black Manta. It's one of the two. It reminds me of that. So.
Yeah. That's, I suppose, if you like, further evidence to suggest this is maybe another version of them all together on yet another Earth in a way, because there's this hinted at unseen history of this team and the Duchess. Of course, I mean, it's been a few years since they were last published, so it's entirely possible that they could have met her in the gap between issues 243 and 244 and had lots of adventures with her. So maybe that's the easy way to sort of think of it. I mean, it's nice to think that these are the same guys who appeared previously. As I said, this run only lasts 7 issues, but the numbering is revived again in a few years. And there's also an issue of Brave and the Bold, an issue of DC Comics Presents that involve Blackhawk. We're going to do both of them eventually.
So don't worry, the accents will return.
And it's very interesting to compare and contrast them and sort of see the very different approaches that are sort of taken and how that all fits into the multiple of continuity.
Yeah, if it does.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Anton Vibrax, of course, we decided would be Scottish because he calls Blackhawk pal.
Yeah, if your surname was Vibrax, I think you would be, predestined to design a vibrational weapon.
Yes.
That you wear in your hand.
I can never remember the phrase. Normative I can't remember it.
I'm looking at you, Otto Octavius.
I'm sure Irredeemable has talked about it on one of his shows at some point. But I mean, I want to talk about George Evans now. I'm not really too familiar with his work, but I love the artwork of this. It felt like a cross between a Joe Kubert war comic and a young romance because, the blend of character sort of design is just phenomenal. I loved all the stuff with the hints of what the Blackhawks got up to when they weren't being Blackhawks.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And just the layouts and the design of it all is just gorgeous. That's why when I suggested that we do it, I was really glad that we did because the art is beautiful. It's a feast. Mm-hmm. It's very unlike anything else we've really covered. And I know I say that quite often because at this point, it does seem like DC are using a lot of artists who have their own really individual, idiosyncratic sort of styles.
Yeah. and they aren't afraid to try them out, which is really, really exciting. I mean, that scene with Olaf skiing, where he like flies off into the air, it's very James Bond. You can just see that from a Roger Moore movie. That's fantastic, yeah.
Andre's little scene in the cafe reminded me of sort of like, the scenes you used to get in The Champions, when you'd see them having their sort of civilian life before they were called off on missions.
Yeah, without a doubt. Uh-huh.
I've never seen the Mission Impossible TV series, so I don't know if the characters in that ever got, scenes showing their civilian life. Did that sort of thing happen?
Hardly ever. Incredibly rarely. It happened literally in a handful of episodes, and usually it's part of the plot. Not even a handful of episodes. I can only think of like one where it's really, really features.
Right, I see. So that's not a valid comparison. I withdraw that from the record. But
no, it's interesting.
It was just something I sort of imagined as I was reading it. As a first issue, I think it does a really good job of setting things out. They're now mercenaries, or if they're not the versions we've met already, this group are mercenaries, but they all just kind of do it when they're not skiing or chatting up beautiful women in cafes.
Heroes for hire.
Yeah.
I wonder if that concept will come back.
I think it probably has by this point. Wait a minute. When Luke Cage is around by this point.
Yes, Luke Cage has been around.
Has Danny joined them? I can't remember. Probably not. Probably not just yet. But anyway, can't be too far away.
I found it quite fun that Ramona Fatale's alter ego is called Patch, which of course is what Wolverine's disguise is.
Yes.
That he started off in, was it Marvel Comics Presents that started, or was it the start of his first ongoing series? I think it was early on in his first ongoing series.
Oh yeah, that rings a bell.
In Madripoor.
Sure.
When he's got the dinner jacket on and stuff like that. Yeah. Let's put an eye patch and Wolverine, no one will recognise him. Sure.
On the subject of eye patch, quite a funny thing happened as we record this one. Is Peter arrived at the studio?
Yes, I arrived, and of course all our technical crew were there, and David was sitting in this big chair facing away from me, and he swiveled round and all the crew looked up, and they were all wearing eye patches.
Oh, how we laughed.
Thanks, Nick Courtney.
Yes. There's just been this announcement, obviously, of a new Batman and Deadpool crossover. I want the two Patches to square up to each other. I want Ramona to, get her Uzi and shoot up Logan and then for him to heal in front of her, and then there'd be a slow dissolve and they'd wake up
there we are.
Smoking cigars or something 10 minutes later.
And Nick Fury can come in and team up as well.
That's the point, yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
She does come across as sort of like a Bond villain or something like, it's a fascinating character. Mm-hmm. I'm very intrigued. I'm definitely going to flick through the other issues. And do you know what, listeners, actually, I'll post the covers of the other issues of this run, because there's not that many of them. I'll post the covers on the socials this week so you can have a look at them, as well as all the other bits and bobs.
That's what to do. Mm-hmm. So again, of course, this is another Jerry Conway edited title, one of the titles that he decided to bring back, as he did with All-Star Comics and New Gods and others.
Yeah, Jerry Conway doing a lot of very interesting stuff.
Yes, and milking the rich history that DC has.
Definitely.
Or actually Quality has in this case.
Yeah. I mean, because obviously I think Quality published Blackhawk for like the first 107 issues or something.
Uh-huh.
DC took it over issue 108, I think, cover dated January 1957. So yeah, DC have had them for a while, so to speak.
Yeah.
And as I said, there's another revival after this one ends and they pop up in some more. So there will be some more Blackhawk eventually.
Yes. And there will be some more Quality characters coming up relatively soon.
And of course, there is another issue of Justice League of America that we haven't done yet, which features the Blackhawks. Mm-hmm. That's probably that's quite a way off, I think, as the crow flies at the moment. Right, shall we do the letters?
Yes, let's jump ahead just a couple of issues to issue 246 and have a little look at Blackhawk bylines.
Indeed, and the first letter goes like this.
Dear Jerry, Steve and George, at long last, the skies once again echo with the battle cry of the incredible Blackhawks. It has been too long since I last heard HAWKAAAAA ring in the air. I read the story in which Blackhawk fought Captain Von Tepp after Von Tepp killed Blackhawk's brother. I followed as the team mimicked the 60s superhero craze by donning costumes and superpowers. And I waited for the re-emergence of the real Blackhawks. They're here! I much prefer the new Blackhawks to any past version done. No team such as this can be supported by the US government. They are too individualistic. They cannot be superheroes. They are not that kind of people. Efficient, but not cold and computer-like. Thanks to everyone involved, the Blackhawks are back. This is one reader that never left. I repeat, the Blackhawks are back! They have never been away! HAWKAAAAA! And that's from Michael Hugan from Lompoc, California.
Lompoc, California. Good grief. Do we have any listeners there? Let me know, someone. Editorial response. True, Mike. In our hearts, the Blackhawks have never been away. But 7 years passed since their last recorded adventure, and you included, hundreds wished them well on their return. The stacks and stacks of mail were from old readers who had left the fold, new readers who had never heard of our own Magnificent Seven, fans who had only seen him in reprint, and, like yourself, those who had thrilled to their past exploits. And you knew, deep in your heart, that they would someday return. Did we succeed in thrilling readers anew? Read on. Next letter goes like this. Dear Editor, although I have only 2 issues in the old Blackhawk comic in my collection, I was still glad to hear of their revival. The Blackhawk team was one that I developed an interest in only after their demise, so to speak. Now I am no longer doomed to wandering back-issue comic stores for stale stories of the past. The first new issue holds great promise for the success of the team in these fiercely competitive days. George Evans is obviously a talented artist, but his work is too scratchy for my tastes. Perhaps a different inker is required. Skeet's story was an affectionate potboiler full of the classic elements of the genre, but I don't think fans will expect anything more, and I cannot criticise a script full of all of the action that Blackhawk readers will demand. The Blackhawk bylines in the issue points out that there is a great deal of unknown about our heroes. Why not start clearing up the mysteries, building strong characterisations without sacrificing action? You have 243 issues of Blackhawk to draw on, to enlarge the legend, to expand our knowledge of what appears to be a heck of an incredible operation. Let's have more of Duchess Ramona too, or other women to provide colourful additions to the large and powerful cast you have to work with. Out of all the possible cliched endings you could have had, the single tear bit was the worst. I expected Blackhawk to stay behind for a minute to say goodbye to Ms. Fatale, and then get kidded by his comrades as they notice lipstick on his face, and Jack C. Harris interrupts here to say, talk about cliched endings, before the letter resumes. A romance between the two might be an interesting development, and the Duchess would certainly not detract from the magazine no matter how many times she appeared. The series has a great deal of potential. I hope you have as much fun tapping it as I have reading it. The first issue has me hooked, so give it all you've got, guys. And that's from Alex Britton, Yorkville, New York.
And editorial response is done! Efforts are at full throttle, Alex, as you'll see in our next issue. That's right, Blackhawk backers, there will be a next issue. Sales reports have been so good that Blackhawks will remain airborne. For how long? That's up to you. So, be sure to be here next time as the Blackhawks are embraced by Death's Many Arms. As scripted by Steve Skeets and inked by George Evans. Ramblin' Rick Estrada takes over the pencil chores this time since Genial George has his hands full on the losers' missions and our fighting forces. So says Jack C. Harris.
I'll have to have a look. I've got a full run of the Losers and Our Fighting Forces. I'll have to have a look through and see if there's any stories where they meet characters of the same names as someone who appeared in the DC Golden Age. That'd be fun. Is that the first mention of the Losers in the podcast? Maybe not.
Not sure.
Won't be the last. There's another little bit of blurb that reads, a quick aside to Dave Arnold of Worcester, Massachusetts, who wrote, let us not hastily knock those changing 60s when his mighty team donned costumes and became superheroes in the camp craze of those troubled times. For in my opinion, that was the Blackhawks' golden age. Goodness me. The editorial response says,
congratulations, Dave. Of the many hundreds of letters we received, yours was the only one who expressed a favourable opinion of that period of the Blackhawks' history. Keep tabs on us and you'll soon find that this is the golden age of the Blackhawks. HAWKAAAAA!
A golden age which lasted a whole 7 issues. So yes, maybe, I guess sales must have tailed off heavily almost immediately.
Yes. Oh dear.
There is a special Blackhawk bylines in issue 250, which reads, the saga began in 1941, it stopped in 1969, it returned in 76, and later in that same year the saga ended, it was finished. Perhaps for all time. Yes, the Blackhawks have flown their last. After their gallant defeat of Killer Shark and the forces of the Empire of Death, this noble fighting team, often called the world's greatest, disbanded, with Chuck, their second-in-command, dead, Chopper in the hospital, and Henriksen feeling the weight of the years upon his back. Blackhawk felt the time was right for them to go their separate ways and lead the private lives that they have never known. Chuck died, listeners! Gasp!
Sorry, Chuck, if you're listening.
Oh yeah, of course, well there's a big explosion at the end, that's right. They will be missed, the letters page continues. Although they've been chided for selling their skills and using violence to earn their pay, they still retain the quality of nobility that set them apart from other men. They were superheroes in the truest sense of the term. But why did they stop? We can't answer that question. Jerry Conway, George Evans, Rick Estrada, Paul Levitz, Jim Sherman, Al Milgram, Dave Kraft, Steve Skeets and Jack C. Harris all put an incredible amount of work into each issue of Blackhawk, but something never clicked. The blue-black garb mercenaries didn't seem to fit in today's strenuous world. Perhaps, as some readers suggested, we should have kept the Blackhawks in a World War II era, fighting the only real supervillains, the Nazis. Or maybe the superhero camp version of the late 60s deserved another try. We didn't think so. We thought the Blackhawks should meet the modern world head-on, with a force and power that would rival any previous incarnation of the characters. We wanted you to forget the Blackhawks of old and recognise the new Blackhawks as the one, the only and the most original. Panther Pink Panther from head to toe. We have to face it, we failed to capture your interest, so it is with sadness that we close the Blackhawk casebook once again. This time we feel it may be the last time, and the Blackhawks will forever be resigned to memories. We hope the memories will be fond ones. Those of you who did pick up these 7 issues, we thank you. Your letters of support and your comments and suggestions helped to make each issue better than the one before. We knew that you were loyal and avid readers, and we only wished there had been more of you. What lies ahead for the future? Is this truly the end of the Blackhawks, the only comic book series to continue into the 60s from their origin during the Second World War, except for Superman, Batman and Wonder Woman? They enjoyed a 28-year uninterrupted run, a 7-year limbo and another year's worth of issues before being called back to wherever comic book heroes go. It could happen again. How? Well, that's up to you, and it might already be too late. Although this is the last issue of Blackhawk, if enough of you have picked this and preceding issues up, the sales reports might indicate bringing them back again. So, buy more than one issue, and get all your friends to do so. Write to us and tell us that you'd like to see more of Blackhawk, Andre, Chuck, Stanislaus, Chopper, Hendrickson and Olaf. Who knows? Maybe we can all see the Blackhawks fly again in some distant future. And there's a little bit more, but we won't really go with that. As I've said already, this is not the last time the Blackhawks are going to appear on the podcast. There's a couple of team-up issues which we'll cover, and there's another revival of the series in the early 80s, which we might do an issue of that when it starts. We'll see how we feel when we get there. Maybe we'll just do the DC Comics Presents and leave it at that. But for now, that's the last time we're going to hear about the Blackhawks on the show for a little while.
But what did you think of the 70s revival of the Blackhawks? You can write to us and let us know at theearth2podcast@gmail.com. Make sure you follow us on social media, because David will be putting up some lovely bonus material for this. And indeed, every episode, he does a fantastic job. Thank you very much.
Pleasure, treasure.
On Facebook, Instagram, and Blue Sky, we're at the Earth2 Podcast. And on Twitter, we're at podcast_Earth2, and it is the number 2 for all of our socials.
Yes, I really enjoyed doing this episode. I have to say, lots to talk about. Listeners, if you're enjoying what we do, please consider going to wherever it is you receive your podcasts and giving us a positive review. We are told that such things are good for our optics, and that always helps. Failing that, or even in addition to that, you could think about going to our coffee page and buying Peter the price of a beverage as he edits out all of the glitching that happened tonight and the attempts to say Raoul, which happened tonight, which is lots of fun.
Raoul.
And everything. So yeah.
On that Blackhawk bombshell, I've been Peter.
And I've been David. We'll see you again very soon on
the Earth2 Podcast. HAWKAAAAA!
Transmitter cube activated. Return coordinates set for Earth Prime.
Madame Fatale. That's not right. That's another character.
Providing cover as she and Raoul. Providing cover as she and Raoul.
God, just say Raoul.